And I feel like the way our society views forgiveness is kind of skewed because the way society views forgiveness is, oh, when you're forgiving somebody, you're forgiving them for yourself. And because you're forgiving them, then you should let it go, and and there should no longer be consequences, right? That's how a lot of people see forgiveness. People see forgiveness as this thing that you can just give, and then the person is now exempt of all type of accountability and of all type of consequences, right? And I saw a video this morning on TikTok, and this lady asked, "Oh, as a Christian, right? How do we have to deal with people that hurt children, for example?" Because that was a wild example, but it was just an example. She said, "Oh, how should we deal with people who hurt children? Is it that because we're Christian, then we need to let it slide because they say they're sorry and they're truly repentant? Is that how it should be? Or should we be upholding them to a standard where they have to be punished?" And this brother said something in a way that I personally found very interesting. Um, he said he said that a person who's truly repentant would want to still go and would want to still fulfill the consequence of their actions. For example, in this case, someone who abused a child and is truly repentant would um someone who's abused a child and is truly repentant would want to be punished in front of the law, right? And the brother said that just because someone repents doesn't mean that they're exempt from consequences, right? And I think this is something that people get wrong a lot of the time. And especially with this passage, this is something that a lot of people get wrong about what forgiveness is and how forgiveness should go, right? Because a lot of people see it as, oh, um, I need to forgive this brother regardless of what he's done to me, regardless of how much he hurt me, regardless of what he's done to me, what he's done to hurt me and to put me in a bad situation. I need to forgive this brother. And because I've forgiven this person, it means that now I have to let them back in my life. No, you don't, right? The way I've been taught forgiveness is when you forgive, you have to give a second chance. And I just don't agree with that, right? Just because I've forgiven somebody does not mean that I have to give them a second chance, right? There's only so much that my heart can take, right? At the end of the day, I'm only human. And if we go back into the subject of religion, right? As a Christian, I feel like letting someone back in your life who deeply hurts you is only going to get you to criticize this person inside your heart and to doubt them and to constantly be thinking about them. And at the end of the day, you're going to be sinning against God because you're trying to put yourself on this moral high ground where you're letting this person back into your life because they said that they were sorry and because they said that they were repentant of something that they've done to you, and because you feel like you have to forgive them, and that forgiveness comes with bringing this person back into your life. But I think it really doesn't have to, right? I believe that you can forgive somebody without letting them have any more access to you, right? I don't know if I'm being clear on this, because let's say in the scenario of a marriage, right? You have a man, a woman, they're married, happily married, etc. One of them cheats on the other, and the other happens to find out, right? As a good Christian, you would be called to forgive your partner, right? Because obviously you're called to forgive anybody, forgive your brother, etc., etc., right? Okay, but now we're in a scenario where even though you've forgiven this person, the seed of doubt is in your heart, and now you can't go back to the way that you were. Isn't it better for both you and the other person that you just let them go? Isn't it better for both parties that the separation just happens? I actually have a really big issue with the way that our society sees forgiveness, whereas it's like, oh, but you're not forgiving them for them, you're forgiving them for you. Yes, but also for me, I have to keep them away from me, right? It gets to a point where someone does something that sometimes will hurt you and scar you so badly that the only the only logical situation that can happen next is you separating yourself from them. It's the only logical thing that can happen next, right? Now, obviously, there's levels to this because not everyone will do something that will warrant you separating from them and cutting them off completely, right? That's where discernment has to come in, right? Sometimes we have to discern and be like, okay, this situation I can forgive and stay, right? This guy, it was an honest mistake. It wasn't something like a choice. He wasn't deliberate on it. He didn't mean to hurt me. I can forgive and also stay. But in another situation, you can think, oh, this one ain't right, right? This person deliberately chose to hurt me in that way. This person deliberately chose to put me in this situation. This person deliberately chose for things to be this way, right? So, yes, I have to forgive because that's what I'm called to do, but that doesn't mean I have to stay, right? That doesn't mean I have to stay. I can just leave. I can forgive and still leave for my own mental health and for my own mental fortitude. I think this idea that we have as a society that forgiving means staying with whoever did you dirty, or forgiving means keeping them around, or forgiving means not acknowledging what they've done to you. It stems from the idea of forgive and forget, right? Where basically you're supposed to, whenever you forgive, it's as if your memory is wiped from what that person has done and from how that person has hurt you. And I think that's something that's more harmful than helpful, if we're gonna be completely honest. I didn't think that the best scenario would be for them to just take it on the chin, just wait, and then see if it gets better. But then that builds resentment, right? If we go back to the concept of the cheating spouse, right? The spouse that got cheated on will never go back to that level of trust that they had for their spouse to begin with, right? And them telling themselves that they forget because they've forgiven is only going to start building resentment and building a lack of trust within that relationship, right? Because now every time the other spouse is going to do something, go out, dress up a certain way, the spouse that got cheated on is only going to be thinking, oh, they're trying to go cheat on me again, right? So that built up resentment is just going to end up hurting you and end up making you sin and end up making you turn out to be the bad guy when in reality you really aren't, right? You're really just the result of the toxic culture around forgiveness. That's really all you are. I think in some scenarios where you actually get done dirty, the most logical thing for you to do is to get yourself away from these people, to cut them off completely. Just go live your life elsewhere because there's no way that you're gonna get done like that and still stay around, right? It's just not worth it. It's really just not worth it. And I think letting yourself get guilt tripped into staying in a relationship where you got done dirty, in a friendship where you got done dirty, and even when it comes to families, oh, that's a whole nother thing. Now, let me start. When it comes to families, I feel like the most toxic mentalities when it comes to forgiving has to come with family. Because for some reason, people assume that just because we're blood means that anything that you do against me, anything that you do to hurt me, anything that you do that is going to affect me has to be swept under the rug because we're family. But really not, right? I've in the last few years, and by few years I really mean since like 2023, I've become a big advocate for cutting off your family. Yeah, I've become a very big advocate for cutting off your family because a lot of family members don't deserve to still be in your life, right? The amount of villains you have in your family, I'm still pretty young, so obviously there's a lot of um family stories that I'm not aware of. There's a lot of family stories that hasn't happened to me. I haven't necessarily had someone have a genuine like uh villainous moment against me. Actually, I might have a couple, but that's besides the point, right? But how are you going to tell me you got pregnant, tried to marry the guy who got you pregnant, your father beat on you while you were pregnant, and instead of cutting him off, you went back to him and apologized for getting pregnant? Ma'am, you need to cut that man off. How are you gonna tell me this person asked you for money for months and months and months and months on end and has been completely like wasting that money away when they told you they were going to do something with it, and now when you're asking them for that money back, they're going to try to guilt trip you, right? You can forgive them and still cut them off, right? Because a lot of people feel like cutting off your family, especially very very close relative, is like the pinnacle of ingratitude, especially within African communities, because it's seen as, oh, your parents have done so much for you, or oh, this person has done so much for you. How could you possibly how could you possibly cut them off? Well, Susan, this person who, like you said, has done a lot for me also tried to end me. I think that's a pretty valid reason to cut them off, right? So I'll say it right now. No matter how old you are, no matter how long it's been, if someone in your family does you something that puts you in a position where you feel like cutting them off is the best case scenario, please do it, right? Don't let yourself become this angry, bitter person just because someone else did something and you're deciding to take it upon yourself because you think that you have to put the weight on yourself and just let it go. You don't have to, right? You can forgive and let it go, but still cut this person off, because why do they deserve to still be in your life, right? Just remember that the people who are still in your life, they're in your life because you hold them dear to your heart. If you no longer hold this person dear to your heart because of something of their doing, please feel free to cut them off. Yeah, so I think this is the toxic nature of the way our society deals with forgiveness, because the way we're always seeing it is as, oh, forgive and forget, forgive, and then just let it go completely. Keep that person in your life, it doesn't matter. But I'll say it right now. In most cases, in a lot of cases, the best option isn't to keep this person in your life. The best option is to forgive, yes, but also to cut this person off, because it's not worth it. It just simply isn't worth your time, your effort, and your energy. Anyways, thank you for listening to me rant for a little bit. Um, God bless. Amen. What am I trying to say?